Hello, and welcome to the Choralosophy Podcast. I'm Chris Muntz, the host of the show, and this is episode 47, The Mental Gymnastics of COVID Rehearsals, with Dr. Kyle Nielsen. As we march through what has been the most challenging semester possibly to ever face the field of education, let alone choral education, we find ourselves twisting our minds in pretzels to discover what works and what doesn't work, and we're doing it on the fly. Every day is an experiment, whether you are in person with masks, hybrid, or all online, or some combination of both. You are having to treat each day as if you are a first-year teacher. We cannot predict the outcomes because we've never done this before. We can't predict if our students will learn from the activities that we're having them do because we've never tried them. We've never measured the data. We have to innovate every single day. Dr. Kyle Nielsen of Southern Virginia University has been putting together a highly innovative program for his students this year that changes fluidly all of the time. In this conversation, Dr. Nielsen and I talk through the ideas and the processes that he has been experimenting with. I'm going to throw some announcements out there first, quickly, before we get to this conversation with Dr. Nielsen. First, ChoralosophyCon 2021, Atlanta, April 9 through 11. On a Friday evening through the weekend, we're going to gather a small socially distanced choral convention. We're going to cap it at 60 people. We've got some convention space booked at the Four Points Marriott there in Atlanta by the airport. So it'll be a quick, easy flight in. Southwest is flying there now, which means that you can get some of those want to get away ticket prices. And Southwest, of course, now during COVID, it just has been canceling for free if you have to cancel for something. So it's a great opportunity for us to jump on a relatively inexpensive flight from almost anywhere in the country. Join us in Atlanta. We've got a group rate on some hotel rooms, and we're going to be putting together a convention that is a different kind of format than what you are used to. It's going to be more interactive. Presenters are not presenters, they are session leaders. And we've got Ryan Main, Jacqueline Johnson, Maria Ellis are going to be doing some sessions and leading some workshops, basically, where we sit around and talk about some topics that we normally would hear presented at a convention. I'll be doing some, of course, especially things like putting you through the process that I put my students through with literacy in a form of a reading session. We're going to do a reading session where we actually do the same process in learning music that my students do, so that you can see some of the things I always talk about in literacy area. So it's going to be lots of fun. Also, of course, we have mymusicfolders.com is a source that you can get the Resonance Singer's Mask, which is the best product on the market. I've been able to test out that now for a month and a half or so in real in-person rehearsals. I've also been able to play with some of the others out there on the market, and the quality of the construction of this is top notch. They are not cheap, but you can use the Choralosophy code, a discount code at checkout. And if you're ordering for your whole choir, it can save you hundreds of dollars. But here's the deal. You get what you pay for. These are top quality masks. The fit, the durability, they're washable, all the things that you need them to be, and your singers can really breathe, inhale, exhale, and articulate. So check that out. While you're at mymusicfolders.com, there's lots of other stuff there that you probably need. So you might as well use that discount code while you're there on new choir folders, a bunch of other choir gear that you may need. And of course, sightreadingfactory.com continues to be the winner of my school year, creating content that is really causing kids to have to dig in and build their skills over the course of the school year. It's just a huge deal for each of myself and each of my students to have a membership to sightreadingfactory.com. So head on over there, sign up for yourself, all of your students, and then enter Choralosophy at checkout to get 10% off your entire order. With no further ado, I'm going to bring you to my delightful chat with Dr. Kyle Nielsen, talking about brainstorming and being fluid in our COVID rehearsals. Okay, I'm here with Dr. Kyle Nielsen. Dr. Nielsen, Kyle is the Southern Virginia. I did it wrong. I just practiced it. Southern Virginia University, Director of Choral Activities. Is that your title?
Yeah, it's Choral Studies, but it's tomato.
Choral Activity Studies at Southern Virginia University. Welcome to the show, Kyle.
Thank you.
I'm excited to pick your brain a little bit. One of the things that I have been, of course, very interested in the last several months is the path forward for us in choir world related to getting back to rehearsal, getting back to having the best form of music education that we can possibly have. And one of the things that I think is interesting is that across the country, everybody's kind of becoming innovative and doing lots of things that are new, and not everyone's coming up with the same plan. So we're going to talk a little bit about what you guys have done at your school. I'll talk a little bit about what I've done at my school and just kind of bounce ideas off of each other. But first, why don't you just tell us a little bit about who you are and where you come from, and what led you to where you are now doing what you do?
Sure. So I grew up in the California, San Francisco Bay Area as a big time athlete, actually, for the most part. Really musical family. Grew up playing all kinds of instruments and whatnot, and then came to undergrad actually at Southern Virginia as a faith-based institution. It was back then lovingly called BYU East, as it's a private it's the liberal arts version of BYU, essentially, that we predominantly serve members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But came here to play lacrosse and do music, and then ended up staying to do music and theater, and stopped playing lacrosse, which is maybe a common story amongst many of us. But that's how I got to the East Coast. And I was fortunate in our designation as BYU East that we have a lot of retired BYU professors that used to come and teach here because they realized they didn't want to retire and would come here. So I met this man named Clayne Robinson, who taught voice at BYU for decades and knew a lot of the people that a lot of us probably know now, like Dwight Bigler, who's at Virginia Tech, and prominently in my life, Andrew Crane, who's at BYU now. So between Clayne and Dwight, they connected me to Andy, and I ended up going to study with Andy at East Carolina, where I did choral conducting and vocal performance, which was kind of my hopeful career track, was to end up being a DCA somewhere where I could teach voice.
Okay.
And so that from there, Andy connected me with the now late Karen Kennedy at University of Miami, who I went into my doctorate with her. And that it was at that point that to the kind of third leg of my professional journey that I met Josh Haberman through Karen and Andy, who are great friends with him, and started working in the summers for the Desert Chorale, which turned into a year-round job as their artistic administrator, which I did for about 5 years, and also turned into a conducting fellowship, I guess, with Seraphic Fire my last year, my doctorate. So I've done a lot in the pro choir world over the last few years. And then just fortunately, my teacher retired the year that I was done with my doctorate, and I got this job, and now we're here. So
that's awesome. So take us back before we dig into stuff to your lacrosse and music days.
yeah.
What was the linchpin or a musical memory maybe that you have that kind of solidified, I'm not a lacrosse player forever, but I'm a choral musician forever. What did that for you?
I love this question, and I talk about this in my classes every semester. I think this part's so important. So growing up as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, my siblings are all a lot older than me, and we had this album in the car all the time that I literally, until years later, didn't know the title of this song, that as a kid I called the Absalom song. And this is, of course, famously what David heard, right?
Okay.
And they would just send out that Whitaker album, like, "Oh, you're interested in music? Look what we did, BYU singers," right?
Oh, the Ron Staley,
the Ron Staley,
album.
like
Yeah.
the OG Whitaker complete works album. So I didn't even know what it was at the time. It was just kind of osmosis. And then I had an experience in an all county choir, the only all fill in the blank choir I did in high school. Where the conductor, I don't even remember who it was, but we did the Stroop Lamentations of Jeremiah. And it was the first time in a choir I'd done anything that wasn't like a musicals medley or something like that. And then in college, we did Amor de mi alma, I think, and All This Night My Heart Rejoices, but it was on my mission, actually. I was at University of Illinois as a missionary, and I met Bryson Mortensen, who's at Virginia Wesleyan University now, and he was doing his doctoral work at U of I, and he burned me a bunch of archival recordings of the time when he was at BYU. And so I spent 2 years just immersing myself in that sound and that repertoire. And when I got home from my mission, I got married really young and just kind of had this moment of, I'm not going to be on Broadway. I famously say I have a ingenue voice and a character body. So that career wasn't going to work out. And I needed to support my family relatively soon, and kind of found conducting and realized, this connection, this connection, this connection, this is it. It's all right here. And so that was very quickly like, I got to put everything behind this, and haven't looked back.
That's great. So it sounds kind of like the literature, the repertoire, the music itself is kind of what got you addicted. I can identify with that. In fact, that BYU Whitaker album was probably the first choral album I ever owned.
Man, it's so good.
Yeah. And then of course the King Singers and a bunch of other groups that had
Yeah.
albums that were cool when I was 16, and while other kids were listening to 90s rap, I was driving down the road listening to King Singers. So yeah, that's I can definitely feel that. Okay, so this year for school, you guys started school in August, correct?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So we didn't start till September. So you guys got a little bit of a head start on us. And how's it been going so far? How would you kind of give the overview of the first couple months of school for you?
Really well. Really well. It is impossibly difficult every day. And it's been important for us to just kind of step back. As a university, we're lucky to have a president who worked in the biomed field and in big pharma for a long time. And so we had access to some really good data really early, and access to some companies really early that we were able to get testing on campus. We're able to provide masks to every student, disposable masks to every student for every day of the semester. We have HEPA grade filtration in every office and every room, and the ionization through the HVAC system. So all of that and the social distancing guidelines that many of us are following has meant we've had 0 positive cases amongst the student body this whole time. So from a health perspective, it couldn't be better. But as all of us are feeling, in making music in this environment is so different.
Mhm.
And the tenets for us has just been about flexibility and adaptability. We tried really hard over the summer to set up a framework, essentially just assuming that everyone has COVID all the time. And so if you're ready to go online at a moment's notice, if you're at distance and all those things, then it's always easier. We just kind of took the approach of, we know how to do it normal. So if we're able to go back to normal, then that's the easy part. But let's prepare as if we can't. And then, so which has meant that the dozens and dozens of hours over the summer we spent preparing for digital school, everything's different now, and it's changed every week. So that's the flexibility has really been paramount.
Okay, yeah, got it. So walk us through kind of everybody who returns to school has some kind of a protocol that they're going to publish to students and parents that says, here's what we're going to do to make the choir experience, the music program, whatever it is, as safe as possible. What were some of your bullet points that you published, or just maybe another way to think about how to explain to the audience what it is that you're doing proactively to make your rehearsals as safe as possible?
Great. So a few things for context. We're fortunate at SVU, we're an Apple distinguished school. And essentially what that means is we have, through tuition, we provide an iPad and an Apple Pencil and keyboard to every student and faculty member. And this year they increased it to AirPods actually as well. So we're a small college, historic campus with tiny spaces. We don't have a concert hall. We don't have anything like that. We have we have a choir room, sort of, but we have these major advantages in technology. So we put out bullets, like many of us I'm sure did, that we're going to stand 10 feet apart and no more than 30 minutes, and everyone's going to wear a university provided mask, and we're going to double that amount of time for filtration in the room. But what became more important to us was trying to provide them something that was enticing to get them to even just come back to campus. That giving a watered down version of choir, our room is not, we can fit 11 people in our choir room with the right social distance guideline. And that's just not going to work for our 100-person Yalcum choir, right? So we really centered on something that could build skills and build community and would look nothing like normal choir. So we developed this thing called the Vocal Music Collective and sent them a handbook of what they could look forward to. And that was really centered on the iPads and iPad recording and using software for that, which has been really exciting. But that has been the crux of us, to answer your question succinctly, and we can go into that as you want. But was this will be safe, you will be back, but it is going to be different and will be something that is equally rewarding. And much of that trepidation came from us doing a virtual choir at the end of the spring. Our school song is the James Erb Shenandoah. So we put together a video, which maybe had its day on the internet, before the next virtual choir came, and was lovely. And our campus community loved it. And it sounds great. And nobody liked the process. The singers hated not rehearsing,
Yeah.
So that was the thing for us. Like, if we have a video, great, but we just want them to be together and learning the skills and the tools to like be good humans that comes through choir. And so that was really our main focus, was just like getting them together safely virtually. And then if we get something out of that, great. But when we focused on the product, it was less rewarding. So let's flip the paradigm.
So I'm just going to jump in real quick and give a shout out to the supporters of this show that can be really held up as the producers and the underwriters of this show over at Patreon. Patreon.com/Choralosophy is where you can plug into this club if you'd like. It's a growing group. We just cracked over 60 members over there, which means 60 people who are willing to chip in as little as $3 a month or more if they choose, because they enjoy the content that this show provides. They enjoy the professional development, the community, or just because they enjoy listening and feel like they could chip in. That's one reason to do it. Probably the most common reason that people go over there to Patreon to help out. But then there's also the added benefit of the private podcast feed, which is all the stuff that you hear on this main feed continues to be and will always be free. But I put up once a month a behind the scenes episode, so to speak, or an episode that I don't necessarily want to be for the general audience, maybe for a more intimate conversation. And you can be a part of that conversation over there on Patreon. You can also find, anytime I come up with an interesting lesson or quiz or anything in my class, cool standing charts that I made, all kinds of supplemental materials that I might just randomly dump on there as a bonus. And that's kind of where I put all of that stuff, grading rubrics, other types of things that I use. So you can go over to patreon.com/Choralosophy and join that club for as little as $3 a month. And then, of course, make sure that as you're ramping up your singing, whether it be in person or hybrid or online, that you are getting some digital sheet music. It's the wave of the future. And this show, of course, has graphitepublishing.com and ryanmain.com as sponsors that will allow you to use a 10% discount code by entering Choralosophy at checkout on any of the sheet music that you can find and have ready to print immediately on either of those websites. Yeah. Okay. So your students are on campus, but your rehearsal room is not large enough for a normal rehearsal, which is
right.
True for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah.
So are you doing? Is the singing then 100% virtual, or are you singing in small ensembles, or how are you?
That
is there a
has changed every week.
Okay.
So with the original programming for our auditioned group was a combination of all these things. We had a handful of pieces that were for 11 voices. We had a few that we were just going to rehearse everyone virtually. We were going to do some SSAA and some TTBB, just a variety to get them singing in different groups and getting to know different people. And it worked well. And no one got sick, and we learned music, and we're fortunate due to my time with Desert Chorale, we're able to engage a handful of virtual artists in residence who are essentially serving as ringers, but also mentors. So each week I would send the students, like, we're going to get through these bars, and I would send them a project through the software Soundtrap that was preloaded with the 8 professional singers tracks in there. Boom. So then they could still have the experience of like, what does it feel like to sing with a professional singer? Like, what am I tuning to? And would be happy if it would be useful. I could show you an example of that and play some audio or something. But so we did that with small groups, and would be like on Monday, you're in the room, and then the rest of the week you're on Soundtrap. And we felt really good about that. And it just didn't work very well.
Huh. Okay.
And ultimately the music worked fine. We had a lot of technological issues, even though we were sharing interfaces. Everyone had the same iPad, everyone had a mic, but maybe their internet connection was slow, or they couldn't find a quiet space because their roommate, all of those kind of soft issues kept popping up. But ultimately they just wanted to be together. And it was about that time the university put up 10 about like 25-person pavilions all over campus. And so I just kind of jumped at the opportunity to see if we could make that work, as I know a lot of my colleagues were like measuring out how many people could fit under a 100-foot tent. So I reserved 4 tents that would each fit about 16 singers at 10 feet apart. And so we moved that direction. So we're doing a combination of all of the things. So I have some student conductors who will be out in the tents rehearsing people, and I'll be in the room, and they'll cycle up there. Like if we're going to record something, they'll come up there and record, or we're doing a handful of pieces with piano that group will come up where the piano is. And if they're working on accompanied stuff, they'll be outside. And that has seemed to work the best so far, though I will say that we're spending the majority of our time outside in those pavilions because, again, they can all see each other and they just like to be near each other. So we have 4 tents of 11
Right.
or 3 tents of 16 or whatever, but they can like see each other and hear each other. And so we can like meet as a group and talk first and then split out and come back, make a big circle and sing, all those sorts of things.
Right.
So
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Thanks.
So it sounds like you are like kind of like you said, I like how you phrased it. You're doing a little bit of all the things. Like there's a lot of our colleagues are kind of pigeonholed into an all virtual scenario, or even if they're not comfortable in some of their schools, an all in-person scenario, then that's hard for them to work the spacing, and that we're kind of dealing with that across the education community, I think. But it's interesting, and it's cool that you get to be so flexible, because in a lot of ways you get to be this will be a bad choice of words intentionally, but a petri dish of experimentation. Of what you could be doing, which I think also very astutely you pointed out that going back to normal will be the easy part. And so what do you have to lose by experimenting with all of these different things? And so so kudos to you on that.
Thank you.
So here's what I would ask then. So because it seems like you're going through mental gymnastics to try to figure out the best possible way to get your students an education, right? To offer them something that they want to be a part of and that means something to them. Why not? Why are you fighting so hard to do that? What is the why behind that? Especially related, so the other easy way would be to just say, okay, we're just going to do a bunch of music appreciation stuff on virtual, and sorry guys, we don't have enough space. We'll do choir next semester. Why continue to be so creative? What drives that?
Part of it is just kind of my nature, I think, as a human. It's just what I like to do, but it has been debilitating at times this semester. And there's been weeks where it's just been like, tossing your hands up in frustration. But the feedback that I get from the students the most that makes me feel like it's worth it is I'd be interested in your perspective on this too, just with Gen Z in general, but the fact that I am trying to solve this is what they actually care about.
Yes.
They love to make the music, and they have those moments where they're making music and they love it. And I get really disappointed almost immediately, because I think, like, what's the point? Like, this group of 14 people did this. We're not going to have a concert. This isn't going to record well. We don't have a concert hall we can go record in, but they don't care. They're happy to be together, and they trust me because I'm trying to do everything I can to keep them together. and so that reciprocates. So for me, that's been worth it. And on the flip side of that, it's been fun to be able to employ a handful of my friends who are out of work right now too. You know, they're starting to be True Concord's doing a bubble right now in Tucson, and Conspirare's doing some virtual things, and Desert Crowd's done some virtual things, but not anywhere near their kind of work they had before. And so that combining of my worlds has been really valuable to me. You know, my students who are going to be want to be singers or want to be conductors. And we've started a video series where I have each of the professional singers every week just pick a topic that they're passionate about. And it's basically like a 10-minute TED talk. And so we've heard about being a good colleague and claiming your agency as an artist and learning how to sing in your living room and valuing your human network and saying yes to opportunities. And they're hearing this from the horse's mouth, not just their teacher, you know. And then they get to sing with those people, and it's helped us from a rehearsal standpoint. You know, I go out there with my iPad and the Soundtrap project and a Bluetooth speaker, and I can say, you know, altos, listen to these sisters sing and tell me what you hear. What do you hear in the singing that you want to replicate? And then I can mute them and play everyone else, and so they're singing with voices instead of singing with a MIDI keyboard or singing with practice tracks. So all of that has been fun. And I'm always asking in the back of my mind, like, is any of this going to be applicable later? Like, could this be a way for me to start a professional choir in rural Virginia? Because we can rehearse on Soundtrap, and then I can fly them in for 3 or 4 less days than I would have need to and save that, you know, $3,000 on the margins. So I'm looking that way too. But for the most part, it's these students, they see that I'm trying, and they see that I'm authentically giving them what's important to me. Like, this literature is important to me. Here are my friends that I want you to be friends with. And then our medium is choir, you know? So
yeah, I think
it's worth it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that is something that students see. Also the Gen Z kids, that sometimes with the younger kids, it has to be pointed out to them a little bit more explicitly. But in particular, they notice that they're getting to do something right now, which means that sometimes they get to sing together, which is something that might have been a very frustrating thing for us to be able to have to sing the way we're currently singing with all of the adjustments. A year ago, that would have been a very dissatisfying experience. But with what we all went through as a society over the course of the pandemic, even 16-year-olds are starting to show a lot of appreciation for the fact that, for me as their teacher, that I figured out a way for them to be able to do it. And just to show that that I cared enough to wrestle the tiger and figure out a way to move forward. Because I think, like, you're right. I think that they do just need to be together. Like, there is a human. It's not a frill. It's not a thing that you can just put on pause forever. And so I think our students need that. I think that's awesome that you're doing that.
Thank you.
So what would you, we can kind of tie these ideas together here, I think. If so we've established that this is a very important thing. Kids need to figure out ways to make music together. It can be done in a safe way. Of course, you did list out a bunch of advantages that we don't all have, with the testing in particular, that you can be in the same space. Do you have any plans going forward, as success related to COVID on your campus it continues, and assuming it continues, you've got that testing in place? Are there other, do you have other ideas or dreams for finding in your community, like a larger indoor space to allow that next step of being able to do something like in a gymnasium, figuring out a way to put the group all together at once?
I originally was going down that road to see if we could share our arena with athletics, who's also trying to gather their humans through their medium as well, you know. And our town is just too small to have something big enough besides our sports facilities, which are busy. And so again, it's been one of those things that I've been trying to just limit my thinking though I know that winter is coming, right? And so we're going to have to solve that.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what
That's
we're
kind of why I was
doing.
asking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've decided to do for November at least is originally we were going to make all those YouTube videos and soundtrap, and we're going to make these recordings, and it's just, you know, the mental gymnastics that you said has proved not fruitful, and so we're putting together what we're calling like a musical museum, and using these pavilions as little mini concert venues because they have these kind of little acoustics that you can hear in. And so we're doing this essentially hybrid format of a concert. They'll sing in person, and then we'll have the professional singers providing some content online, and let's say the theme is like music of Transalpina and the music of the English Renaissance, and there'll be, you know, future reading and using the iPads in these creative ways, which is great. We're glad to be doing it, and it's our way to do something. But then as winter comes, as you say, you know, that principle is what I want to keep going after, is what we've found, because this was essentially their idea. We sang it for each other outside once, and they were like, we want to hear each other's, the fruits of our labor. Like, they want to socialize together, they want to hear each other's work. But I'm wondering if the third step for my students, at least right now, isn't they don't really care about rehearsing all together. They just want to be together. So I think we just need to keep using our facilities in a way, you know, we can gather them at 6 feet apart and not sing, for example. And we were starting school a little later, and we're in Virginia, which is fortunate. You know, it's not going to get totally cold at 3 p.m. But you know, the disadvantages already of it's raining, we can't have class has happened, but it's just not a reality for us. So we're trying to explore other avenues, you know, and it's the gathering them in our room, and we have another room we could get access to, but not really sing in with a huge group. So it seems like the more and more the music making, if I'm prioritizing it the way I think that my students respond to and the resources that I have available, it's the gathering them as humans part, and then the music is ancillary to that, which
Right.
feels backwards for the years of school that I went to, right?
Right.
But we'll solve that. And a lot of the time, it's going to be their ideas. It's going to be me opening a dialogue that says, I'm trying to do this. Here are our resources. Do you have any ideas I haven't thought of yet? And they may. And just kind of rolling with it, and writing to the administration and asking this, asking that, and just seeing what we can't free up. So currently we have no cold weather plan. But if we can get through this semester, then I think we have a little more flexibility just to say, like, we can prove we can stay healthy now. What are next steps? And if the music has to be online, but the people are in person, then maybe that's that. But
Yeah.
the
Did you
flexibility has just got to
did
be
you
the
happen
key.
did you happen to catch my most recent episode with Betsy Cook Weber?
No, I
Okay.
had no idea. I thought the last one was with Andy and Jamie Rhodes.
No,
I
I
gotta
stuck.
listen to that
Yeah, it's a good one.
immediately.
It came to mind because she did a thing. This is way pre-COVID, but it's something that she does to develop in leadership within her group, which is things she calls the car wash. And I'm thinking it might be an interesting thing that you guys might try because of your small space indoors where you can only hold 11, and then you've got kids gathered. This is, of course, you're not going to hurt my feelings if you don't try this, but it just stuck in my head. What she does, the car wash concept, is you get a small group together, or a bunch of small groups together, and the rehearsal consists of some of the singers in each group rotating to the other group to rehearse a different piece or a different section of the piece. So let's say if it's an octet, 4 stay where they are and 4 rotate to another group. So that basically over the course of an hour or two, all the singers have rehearsed with each other, just never all at the same time, which I'm going to try with my kids just because I think that sounds fun.
Yeah,
But the other aspect of it, especially if you're in a challenging space problem where you can't get all the kids in one place at the same time, that might be an interesting idea.
it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's kind of what we've tried to do, but way so much more elegant, I think,
Yeah.
which is lovely. That is definitely a priority. And it goes to the point we've been saying this whole time. If we work on one piece of music for a month, but they all get to sing together, didn't we accomplish our task?
Right.
Didn't they learn? Didn't they create community? And aren't we educating them?
Yeah. My kids right now are used to singing, 5 or 6 pieces of music in the fall, and we're doing 2. And
Yeah.
we've got less time, but it's amazing how much, like I said before, just appreciation we can have for the fact that we still get to do it.
Yeah.
When we know so many people aren't in a situation where they can, and that's important. All right, so let's wrap this up with this. What are some things that, and this is something I just occasionally like to end my shows with, something in the choir world, can be on any topic, that you don't think we are talking about enough but should be? This is a hot seat
Oh,
question.
yeah. Wow. That we aren't talking enough about but should be. I wonder about this basic thing that we're talking about right now and how our perspective would shift on like conference concerts. And I spent so much time with Seraphic Fire and the Desert Chorale, and it which for some people is like pinnacle music, right? And I went to ACDA conferences and I recorded albums and we did all these things, but the parts that I value the most were like the going out to eat after, and the people and talking about the Tampa Bay Lightning with James Bass and having a healthy rivalry with John Buffett, the Warriors versus Cavaliers for 4 straight years, those like humanizing things. And the people who do it really well, in my experience, is college, high school, middle school, whatever, that's the center of the rehearsal. It's not just the after experience or the getting drinks at the conference, but like the humans that also make music, and the people who do that really well, like the people I admire, like John Byen and Bruce Rogers and John Talberg and Andy Crane and people like that. You can see it in the performance. You can almost tell that they've like spent time just hanging out. I just wonder if there's a way that we, as a literature nerd like I am, that we can prioritize that in a more formal way, like this conversation we've had today, which I gotta, when I started this in March, it was like, how are my students going to perform? And in October, that is the last thing on my mind.
Yep.
And it shouldn't have been like that a year and a half ago. And it was, because that's really important to me, that community is like a critical part of the culture that I value as a conductor. But how can we display that as an aspirational goal and not a means to an end? Would be an interesting conversation. I wonder if many of the other things we have initiatives about kindness and diversity and inclusion and things wouldn't start to improve if we just like gave out the trophy for who is figuring out how to be a community together.
That's an interesting thought. So, so I think, just to make sure that I'm interpreting what you're saying correctly, so the idea being that we reward at our conventions the concept of high level performance, which is good. We should, but
Yes.
maybe there also could be ways for us to lift up colleagues that are doing exemplary work in community building, which I think is a great idea. In fact, I think now a lot of, depending on who you're talking to, the diversity, equity, inclusion is now supposed to include belonging. And
that's right.
And that's and so there's that B attached to DEI and B, and so maybe that's a good way to articulate what that B could represent in terms of our professional organizations coming up with an award for that, and or specifically professional development related to that, to the B part of DEI and B. I think that's a great idea. That's great. I think that's excellent.
I think even just to the concert experience, like my most valued musical experiences in grad school were talking to my friends about the thing we listened to. And I just wonder, can we like destigmatize the concert experience so that we could all talk, like have a conversation about it immediately? Or, in the grad office listening to Spotify. Oh, I love this. I love this. I love this. Like, can we figure that out in a conference? I don't know the answer to that, because I love sitting in the hall. I'll never forget where I was when I heard Richard Nance and Pacific Lutheran do Northern Lights for the first time and bust out those glasses in Dallas, those are like landmark experiences for me. But so was like walking out with my friend after and running into Richard Nance.
Right.
And being like, how did you do that? Like, oh, we just like each other and we poured water and we laughed.
You know what I would do
That
if I was running the convention, which of course I'm trying to put together a convention in Atlanta.
You are.
But I don't think we're going to be yet to a COVID place where we can have performing ensembles, but someday maybe. So if I was planning this, I'm going to piggyback on your idea. So the choir performs, we're at a convention, right? The choir performs and it's an exemplary performance. But then rather than the conductor walking off stage to shake hands and congratulate, the conductor stays on stage, the choir leaves, and the audience stays in the room and they just ask him questions or her questions. Like we just sit down and talk about what just happened. And they just get grilled. That's like part of the deal. Is they're going to sit down sit down on a chair. Like, so why'd you pick that piece? How did you get your tenors to sound like that? What was what do you feed your altos? Like that kind of a thing could be a really interesting, if the design is to develop the like professional development, that'd be a kind of an interesting idea. And people would get to know each other.
Cool. That's the thing. I was just talking to a colleague about this last night. Some of my favorite experiences are just like going to somebody's rehearsal just to sit there.
Yep.
And watch them and just see. It's not even to watch them work or their literature. Like those are ancillary benefits. I just want to watch you interact with your humans. Like, what can I learn from that? What can my humans benefit from that? And how can we get better as people and make some better music? I think that's a great idea. Or to pick some singers to talk to too. Like, what do you think about this person? Was that actually helpful? What they said?
Yeah, no, that's really good. And I think how neat would it be if our local, the local branches or local chapters, I guess, of our organizations helped facilitate that idea locally. How cool would it be if, because how awkward do we feel going to our colleague and saying, hey, could I come visit your classroom, but I don't really know you that well. And then they're going to worry that you're just coming to, check up on them, the competition or whatever. There's that whole thing. But if the local organization was saying, here's the thing we're going to do, all you have to do is sign up for this exchange program thing, and you're going to, trade classrooms on this day. And, they having the interaction with local school districts, with local, because that would be said, we kind of get to do that in my school district a little bit because we have, nine secondary choral staff in the district. And so we can kind of swap around a little bit, but we facilitated ourselves. But if I could leave my district and go to a neighboring district and just sit and watch for the day, and and then another day they could come and watch me, or that kind of, because I think that's important. None of us know everything, and none of us interact with our humans, like you said, in just the perfect way. I've gotten so many ideas from watching other conductors.
And it's always in those open rehearsals, maybe that's the trick about the convention. The performing choirs are selected, but there's two options. We love the master classes with the Eric Whitacre singers or with Tenebrae or whatever, but what if I could just go watch Lee Summit High School's rehearsal before their concert? I think that would be lovely. And with the Desert Chorale, when we were touring so much and doing several ACDAs in a row, those were the things that people would ask to come to the dress rehearsal. And their minds would be, Josh Haberman is an amazing conductor, but what a rehearsal technician, and with professional singers. And the comments are always like, wow, that was so much similar to what I experience every day in choir. Like, yeah, because they're just throats with feelings. These are just humans with feelings, and they're no different than our middle schoolers or high schoolers. And so that paradigm shift, the concert was great, but maybe even better having seen how it happened. And I wonder if there's a way to formalize that the gold track gets to go to this rehearsal and this concert.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Because I know that my kids, high school age kids, they rehearse dramatically better when people are watching.
Yeah.
So if I had a choir at an ACDA convention again, it would be to our benefit to open up the final rehearsal to an audience, because it's almost like a dress rehearsal. It becomes a scrimmage, like with a small audience there, and they want to impress people, because there is a certain amount of adrenaline that kicks in when we can see somebody out there, and then of course the benefit to the people watching would be awesome too. Well, I think what'll have to happen then is, as a result of this episode, we're going to change the world, Dr. Nielsen. Just you and I. It's going to happen.
Get Andre Thomas on the phone and
right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and let's try to get some rest and get some sleep and get back to running the mental gymnastics of figuring out COVID choir tomorrow.
Likewise. Thanks for having me on.
All right, thanks a lot. Bye. Thank you so much, as always, for sticking around to the end of an episode. I hope that means that you got something out of it, or at least you enjoyed yourself or found the conversation stimulating. So as always, we'd like to give shout outs and thank yous on this show, and give you the information that would take for you to help out with the mission of this show in whatever ways that you can. This show is produced at Patreon, patreon.com/Choralosophy, by Steve and Kathy Kakachik, Ryan Main, Kyle Peterson, James Mock, Michael Herron, David Kowalczyk, and Ulrika Igrain Munoz Alarcon. So thank you so much for those folks over there, as well as all of the Patreon members. Then, as always, hit up our sponsors. Remember, this show is completely listener supported, which means that I saw on a website of Choral Podcasts once that they listed this show as corporate sponsored, as opposed to all of the other shows that were not corporate sponsored. And so I thought that was kind of funny, because in a technical sense, we are not corporate sponsored here at Choralosophy Podcast. We are user and listener supported, which means that if you don't decide to use the code at one of our venue or one of our sponsors, I don't get paid anything. So they're not sending me a check each month. And of course, listener supported by people over at Patreon. So it's all voluntary on your end. Everything is free unless you decide to support. And so one of the other ways, of course, that you can decide to support is by liking, sharing, commenting, being as interactive with the content that you see on social media from the show. That helps other people see it, and it actually prevents me from having to spend as much money on Facebook advertising. So that's very helpful. Of course, leaving podcast ratings, clicking subscribe anywhere you go are all very helpful things. Would love to see more and more ratings popping up on the Apple Podcasts app. That's always very helpful too, because it helps other people see the show. The shows that have more ratings tend to get pumped to the top of the search. So it's a game, this whole algorithm thing online, but that's how we play the game, as we interact with the content. So thank you so much, and anything that you can do in those ways to help are very much appreciated. We will see you next time, and thanks for listening.